when I saw that my wife had quietly changed her last name on her work profile before even mentioning divorce. I felt something break inside me. But when I found the email she tried to delete, the one she thought I'd never see, I realized our marriage had been over long before. I noticed the signs. I always thought Emily and I were solid. Sure, after 8 years of marriage, we weren't the same couple we'd been in our 20s, but I believed we still loved each other. We had built a home, shared a dog, and dreamed of someday having kids. She was the calm to my chaos, or so I thought. It started small. Late nights at work, locked phones, just tired becoming her answer for everything. I didn't want to be that husband, the paranoid one who checks texts or questions every move, so I trusted her completely. Until one morning, I opened her laptop to print a tax form, something we'd always done together, and saw her work email open. Normally, I'd have closed it right away, but her name caught my eye. It didn't say Emily Carter. It said Emily Brooks. Brooks was her maiden name. She'd changed it back. Quietly, no talk, no warning. Just done. At first, I thought it was a mistake, maybe an HR update, but when I asked her about it that evening, she froze. Her fork stopped midair, then she forced a smile and said, "Oh, that, just something for work." Her tone was off, flat, careful. I'd seen that expression before, back when she used to lie to her parents about skipping class. From that night on, my brain wouldn't shut off. Every small behavior became suspicious. The late meetings, the sudden gym membership, the phone always face down. A few nights later, she fell asleep on the couch. Her laptop was still open on the kitchen counter. I told myself I wouldn't look, that I was better than this, but something, call it instinct or desperation, pushed me to open her email. Most of it was work stuff, until I found a folder in the trash labeled Old Drafts. Inside was a half-written email, unsent, addressed to someone named David. And in the first line, she'd written, "I can't keep pretending he's the one I want." My stomach turned. I scrolled further and saw an attached document she'd deleted that same night. It was titled Prenup Revision, Carter. That was my last name, and right then, I knew this wasn't just about love anymore. It was about money, secrets, and something far worse she was hiding. I couldn't sleep that night. Every time I closed my eyes, I saw her name, Emily Brooks. Not Carter, not my wife, just Emily Brooks. By morning, I felt sick. I kept telling myself there had to be an explanation, that maybe she was planning a surprise or fixing some legal paperwork. But the voice in my head wouldn't let go of that sentence from her draft email. I can't keep pretending he's the one I want, pretending. The word echoed through me like a wound reopening. I waited until she left for work before sitting back down at her laptop. My hands shook as I opened the trash folder again. The prenup document wouldn't open, it said corrupted file. I searched her inbox instead, and that's when I noticed something new. Dozens of emails to a private address I'd never seen before. db.consulting@outlook.com.david. It had to be him. I clicked one. It was short, almost businesslike. "We'll need to finalize before the end of the month. He won't expect it if you keep things calm." My chest tightened. Finalize what? Divorce? A deal? Something worse? Then I saw a forwarded thread titled Joint Account Access. Attached was a PDF listing every shared asset, my salary, savings, even my small business account, everything. She'd sent it to him. That was the moment my love for Emily turned into something colder, a mix of fear and disbelief. She wasn't planning a breakup. She was planning a clean escape. That evening, I tried to act normal. She came home, kissed my cheek like nothing was wrong, and asked if I'd eaten. But I could see the distance in her eyes, the kind people wear when they've already made peace with leaving Emily. I asked, trying to sound casual, "Why'd you switch your name at work?" She froze again, then smiled thinly. "I told you, it's just simpler for branding. Clients knew me as Brooks before, right?" I said. "And David, is he a client too?" That wiped the smile from her face. Her eyes narrowed. "Why are you snooping through my things?" "Because I said, voice trembling. I found an email. About me. About pretending. For a long moment, neither of us spoke. Then she whispered, "You weren't supposed to see that." She turned away, muttering something under her breath, something I barely caught. "He's not ready yet." I felt the floor shift beneath me. My world, the marriage, the trust, the home we'd built, was suddenly made of lies. Before we continue, please subscribe to the channel and write in the comments about which country you're watching this video from. Enjoy the story. That night, while she showered, I checked her laptop one last time, and this time, I dug deeper. In her downloads folder, hidden under random work files, was a zip archive. I extracted it. Inside were scanned legal papers, signed under both our names. Except mine was forged, filed 3 weeks ago. Divorce petition. Submitted by Emily Brooks. She hadn't just changed her name early. She'd already erased me from her life. Legally, before I even knew I'd lost her, I stared at that forged signature. My own name written in someone else's hand, and something inside me snapped. Emily hadn't just been planning to leave, she'd already filed for divorce, pretending I had agreed to it, and whoever this David was, he was helping her pull it off. The next morning, she acted like nothing had happened. She hummed while making coffee, packed her laptop bag, and kissed me goodbye as if we were fine. I watched her car disappear down the street, then opened my phone and began searching. The email address db.consulting@outlook.com led nowhere. No LinkedIn, no website. Just a name buried inside an archived message. David Brooks, consulting.brooks. Her maiden name. My heart pounded as I followed the Traylon old business listing registered 5 years ago to Emily Brooks and David Brooks. A family consultancy. Husband and wife. Except David wasn't me. I dug deeper and found a news article from a small town in Colorado. Local businessman David Brooks acquitted in tax fraud case. There was a photo attached. Emily stood beside him, smiling like she used to with me, her hand on his chest. That was the moment the truth hit me so hard I couldn't breathe. She'd been married before and never told me. But that wasn't even the worst part. The article mentioned something else. David Brooks's business license had been revoked after a suspicious fire destroyed company records. A man with a criminal past, a fake name, and my wife, his ex, was now quietly reconnecting with him while planning a divorce that would drain my accounts. I printed everything I found and shoved it into a folder. My hands were shaking, but I wasn't going to confront her yet. I needed to be sure. That night, she came home late again. I pretended to be asleep, listening to the faint clicking of her laptop keys in the living room. When she finally went to bed, I slipped out and checked. Her sent folder was empty. She'd cleared it, but her browser history told a different story. Recent searches, wire transfer delay policy, how to liquidate joint assets. Divorce approval with proxy signature. She was preparing to vanish again. The next day, I followed her. I stayed far enough behind not to be seen as she parked outside a sleek office building downtown. A man was already waiting by the door, tall, sharply dressed, with salt and pepper hair. He smiled when he saw her hand. She smiled back. She reached up, brushed something off his jacket, and kissed him. It wasn't a friendly kiss. That was David. And my wife, the woman I thought I'd build a life with, was standing there, with the man she used to call her husband. I wanted to storm in, to shout, to expose them both, but something in David's expression stopped me. He wasn't just charming. He was calculating, watching every corner of the street like he expected someone to follow. I realized then this wasn't just an affair, it was a setup, and I was the final piece they needed to play. I sat in my car, watching from across the street, every nerve in my body tight with disbelief. Emily laughed at something David said, touching his arm the way she used to touch mine. Then they walked inside together. For nearly an hour, I stayed there, motionless, gripping the steering wheel so hard my hands ached. I wasn't even angry anymore. I was numb. Betrayal had a sound. I realized the silence of everything you believed in breaking at once. When they finally came out, David handed Emily a thick manila envelope. She looked around nervously before kissing him again and driving off. I followed her home, careful not to be seen. She walked in, went straight to her office, and locked the door. I waited in the hallway, listening to the faint hum of the shredder. That's when I knew she was destroying whatever was in that envelope. But she made one mistake. She left her phone charging in the kitchen. I picked it up, unlocked with her birthday. She hadn't even bothered to change it. There were no messages from David, no calls. But there was one active email thread under her archives. It was encrypted through a private server. But one preview line showed enough to make my blood run cold. The transfer will be complete once he signs the property documents. Make sure he doesn't suspect. He didn't mean me signing divorce papers, he meant something else. Property, my company. I ran to my office, tearing through my files, and there it was, a manila folder from my lawyer that Emily had insisted she'd filed away safely. I opened it, heart pounding. The deed to my company, the one I'd built from scratch before we even met, had been replaced. The signature at the bottom wasn't mine, it was forged. Again, Emily had arranged to transfer full ownership to herself once the divorce was finalized. David had the contact for the buyer, a fake consulting firm. They were planning to sell everything and vanish with the money. My mind raced. I needed proof before I confronted her. Something undeniable. So I installed screen recording software on her laptop, hidden under a system process. That night, I acted normal dinner, small talk, pretending to scroll through my phone. When she went to bed, I watched from my laptop as her screen came alive. She opened a private video call. David's face appeared. "It's almost done," she said softly. "Once the final papers go through, he'll have nothing." "Good," David replied. "He deserves it for what he did." What I did? What was he talking about? Emily frowned. "He doesn't even remember, does he?" David smiled. "No, that's the beauty of it." My pulse hammered in my chest. What were they talking about? Something I'd done. Something they thought I'd forgotten. I watched as David leaned closer to the camera and said, "Once this is over, you'll finally be free. And he'll never know why it had to happen this way." Emily's voice broke. "I know, but I wish he hadn't been there that night." That night. I rewound the clip, heart racing. Whatever had happened that night, it wasn't just about money or revenge anymore. It was something darker, something buried in both their pasts, and mine. I didn't sleep at all. I just sat there replaying that recording. Those words, "I wish he hadn't been there that night." What was I supposed to remember? I went through everything in my head, birthdays, trips, anniversaries, but nothing fit, until one memory started clawing its way back. 2 years ago. A stormy night. Emily had driven out alone to clear her head after an argument. I'd followed an hour later, worried she might crash in the rain. I remembered the road empty, winding, slick with water, and then, a blinding flash of headlights. I woke up in a hospital bed the next morning. They told me I'd spun out and hit a tree. Emily said she'd arrived just after the crash. I believed her. I never questioned how she got there so fast, but now, I wasn't so sure. The next morning, I drove back to that same stretch of road, a lonely curve outside town. The bark on the tree still bore scars from the impact. I parked and walked into the nearby woods, following an old dirt trail. About 50 feet in, I found something half buried under leaves and mud, a piece of metal. Twisted and rusted, it wasn't from my car. It was a different color, a different model. And etched faintly on the surface were 2 letters, DB, David Brooks. It hit me like a freight train. The accident, it hadn't been an accident at all. David had been there that night, and whatever happened, Emily had been covering for him ever since. When I got home, Emily was in the kitchen, her back turned. "Rough day?" she asked, her tone oddly calm. I placed the medal on the counter. "You want to tell me what this is?" Her face went pale. "Jason," she began, her voice trembling. "You weren't supposed to find that." "Then tell me the truth," I said, stepping closer. "What happened that night?" Tears welled up in her eyes. "David was there. He came to see me, to ask for money. I told him to leave, but you showed up. You saw us arguing. He panicked, tried to drive off, and..." She swallowed hard. He hit you, Jason. I told the police, you lost control so he wouldn't go to prison. The room fell silent. So all of this, I said slowly. The emails, the fake divorce, the forged documents. It's about protecting him? She nodded, shaking. He said he'd destroy everything if I didn't help him. He's blackmailing me, Jason. He still has the dashcam footage. I took a deep breath. Then we end it. Together. That night, I met with a detective I knew from years back, someone I could trust. I handed over the video recordings, the forged papers, everything. A week later, they arrested David Brooks. Fraud, extortion, forgery, and a warrant reopened for a hit-and-run. Emily confessed everything. We signed the divorce papers for real this time. No lies left between us. When she left, she didn't look angry or broken, just empty. I never saw her again. Months later, I got an email from an unknown sender. The subject line read, "For what it's worth, I did love you once." Attached was the old photo of us smiling, before it all went wrong. I stared at it for a long time, and for the first time since it all began, I didn't feel hatred, just quiet, heavy relief. Sometimes the truth doesn't set you free, it just stops the bleeding.